Hi everyone, and welcome to this web design tutorial video. Today we're going to have an introduction to responsive web design. Let's go! Hi everyone, so to help us get started with this introduction to responsive web design, we're going to go back to the Visit Orkney project that we completed a few units ago. If you remember, the Visit Orkney web page was a very basic web page with a few images that we've styled, and there was a list of 3 list items that we also styled to make it look like a funky navigation bar. And of course we've got some text in there as well with H1 tags and H2 tags and P tags and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully you're familiar with what you're looking at right now. And here is my Visit Orkney HTML file. I have my style section inside the head of the document, and I've styled the images, and I've styled the list to look like a navigation bar. And in the body of the web page, here's all the content. There are 3 images, there are a few P tags, some H1 tags, etc. Okay, so hopefully you're familiar with what I'm showing you right now. And this is what it looks like. And on my desktop monitor here in the office, it looks fantastic. I can see everything very clearly. All I have to do is scroll down through the web page to see all of the content. Now I wonder what this would look like if I was to open the web page on a small device like an iPad, or an extra small device like a smartphone. Well, let's simulate that by shrinking the browser window. So this could very well be the size of an iPad, and as you can see, we can still scroll up and down through the web page, but in order to see all of the content, we also have to scroll horizontally. Now if we were to put this, let's make it look like a smartphone device, an extra small device like a smartphone. Again, look, oh my goodness, we have to do this horizontal scrolling in order to see the full content of the web page. And in modern web design, we want to avoid that. Horizontal scrolling is a waste of time and ugly and lots of other things too. Vertical scrolling, of course, is unavoidable, and we understand that if a web page has a lot of content, we can easily just scroll up and down. So to help us solve this problem of horizontal scrolling, we have this thing called responsive web design. And one of the responsive web design frameworks that we will be using in this tutorial is called Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is apparently the world's most popular responsive web design framework, and we're going to look at how it works today. Some of the things that we're going to look at will be unfamiliar, and so your brain will tell you this is difficult. But don't let your brain fool you guys. It's not difficult. You just have to accept that it's unfamiliar and take some time to try to become familiar with it. And then you will see how ridiculously easy responsive web design is. So to get started with Bootstrap, I'm going to go to the download section. Actually, I'm not going to download anything. I'm going to copy this link in Bootstrap's Content Delivery Network section. And this is a link to Bootstrap's style sheet file. Okay? And in that style sheet file, there are loads and loads of Bootstrap classes that I can use in my responsive web design projects. So I'm going to copy that link to Bootstrap's style sheet file, and I'm going to paste it into the head section of my Visit Orkney project's web page. So there we go. I've got a link to Bootstrap's style sheet file. Without putting this link into the head section, I won't be able to use Bootstrap. So this is very, very important. Alright. The second thing I'm going to do is go into the body section of my web page, and I'm just going to select all of the content, and I'm going to cut it, Control X, and paste that just into another document. for safekeeping, because I'm going to be copying and pasting this stuff back into Orkney.html as I develop my responsive design. Now, before I start typing out my responsive design using Bootstrap, I'm going to plan my layout, and I've done that already using Adobe Illustrator. And I've decided that my web page will have 4 rows. The first row will contain an image. The second row will contain my navigation bar. The third row I'm going to split into 2 columns. The column on the left will have an image, and the column on the right will have some text. Both columns are the same size, or the same width. And row 4, I'm going to split it into 3 columns. Okay? Now, Bootstrap allows us to do this when we are designing a Bootstrap responsive page. It splits every row in the body of your web page into 12 segments. These are the segments that are available. There's a maximum of 12 for every row. And do you remember, row 3 I'm going to break into 2 columns. Well, this column is going to span 6 of the segments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these 6 segments here will help me to form this column. And the next column on the right is also going to use up 6 of the available 12 segments. So that's how I'm going to make 2 columns in this row. Row number 4 will have 3 columns. So from the available 12 segments, the first column will take up 4 of the segments, the second column will take up 4 of the segments, and the third column will take up the final 4 of the segments. Okay? As I said before, don't worry if this sounds a little bit strange. We'll look at how it works, and you will have plenty of chances to play with these ideas. Right then, let's get started. So I'm going to go back to the body of my web page, and I'm going to divide the body into 4 rows. This one here is going to be row 1. And let's just copy and paste this a few times. That's going to be row 2. This one's going to be row 3. And this one is going to be row 4. Okay? So in the body of my web page, I've divided the body into 4 rows. Now you might be asking yourself, where is this row class defined? Because in the style section of my web page, we don't see this. And then whatever the definition is of this class. Nope. Because I'm not designing this class. This class has already been designed for me, and it's in this file that I've already linked to. So the row class is actually a Bootstrap class. So I've divided the body of my web page into 4 rows. I'm now going to divide row 3 into 2 columns. And before I do that, I need to ask myself, what size of device am I designing for? And as a beginner to Bootstrap, I'm going to design for small devices like iPads. Okay? I'm going to focus on small device design. Okay? And the more experience you get with Bootstrap, the easier it will be to make that kind of design decision, and it will make sense with the more experience that you get. But I'm going to design for a small device. Row 3 is going to have 2 columns, and each column spans 6 of the available 12 segments. So let's see how to do that in Notepad++. Here's row 3. I'm going to go into that row, and I'm going to divide the row into a column for small devices, which takes up 6 of the available 12 segments. So there is my first column. It's empty at the moment, there's no content inside. We'll get there later. I'm going to copy that and then create the next column, which is also in the third row. This is row 3, and I've put 2 columns into row 3. I'm designing for small devices, and I'm using up 6 of the available 12 columns for this column, and I'm using up 6 of the available segments for this column. And if you remember, row 4 had something similar. Just going to copy that again. But in row 4, this column takes up 4 of the segments, and this column takes up 4 of the segments, and this column takes up 4 of the segments. So in row 4, we have 1, 2, 3 columns, and each column takes up 4 of the available segments. Okay? So the structure of my document is now ready. I've got 4 rows, and row 3 has 2 columns, and row 4 has 3 columns, and that is what I've designed here. So I'm good to go. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start putting content into each of the rows. So the first piece of content is my original image, so I'm going to cut that out of there and put that into the top row. The second row had my navigation bar, so I'm going to take my navigation bar HTML and paste that into the second row. Let's just indent it to make it readable. So in the second row we have this list, which is creating my navigation bar. Now in row 3 we have an image in the first column. I'm going to put in my image. There it is. And in the second column in row 3 there was some text, so I'm just going to take that text and put it into that column. This is the second column in row 3. The first column has an image and the second column has some text. And now we're going to go into row 4. The first column had, the first column had some more text, so I'm going to take that text and paste that into the first column. The second column of row 4 had the final image, which is there. And the third column had some more paragraph text, so I'm just going to take that text and paste it into the third column of row 4. Brilliant. So that is my design for Visit Orkney, and I've created a responsive page using Bootstrap. Let's see what this looks like. I'm going to save the file and run it in Chrome. Row 1 has an image. Row 2 has a menu bar, navigation bar. Row 3 has 2 columns. This is column 1 with the image, and this is column 2 with the text. And row 4 has 3 columns. Column 1 has text, column 2 has an image, and column 3 has text. Now let's shrink. Oh my goodness! We've still got the horizontal scroll problem. Notice that the text is perfect. The text has responded to the size of the device. This is responsive web design. But the image has not responded properly. I still have this horizontal scrolling issue because of the image. So very quickly, before I run out of time here, I'm going to explain to you how to solve that problem. On your image tags, we're going to include one more class. This is from the Bootstrap CSS file, and it's called the Image Fluid class. So include the Image Fluid class on any of your images. There was one more, wasn't there? There it is. This is a Bootstrap class which will help images become responsive within your web design. So I'm going to save that and refresh my web page. Boom! I have no more horizontal scrolling. Everything's fine. The images respond. Notice with an extra small device there are no more columns. Everything just kind of collapses into one column. But I was designing for small devices like iPads, and that's when we see my design.